income tax for higher earners, which it says will allow for an extra $1 billion in spending on health and social care.
It is, in short, an extra penny to enable spending on patient care in our National Health Service.
Also making the headlines, there's a warning that supplies of Strep A antibiotics are limited after a surge in cases.
In sport, the Hearts board vows to hang on to the World Cup stars and strengthen the squad in January.
And I'll be bringing you the forecast from a very snowy Aviemore, where temperatures tonight could drop below -15.
I'm John Mackay in Glasgow.
And I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Higher earners in Scotland will pay more in income tax next year. Setting out his budget to the Scottish Parliament, Finance Secretary John Swinney announced plans to increase the higher and top rates by 1 pence in the pound to fund record levels of health spending.
Opposition leaders said the Scottish Government would have to justify increasing tax to voters. Our political editor Colin Mackay was watching, and Colin, it started with some drama.
Absolutely. A leak inquiry is now underway after details of those tax rises were published in advance. The presiding officer was absolutely furious. She actually delayed the statement by about half an hour so she could haul the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister over the coals. But they both denied leaking, and eventually John Swinney was allowed to make his statement. And I think it was probably bolder than really anyone had expected today. He lambasted the economic mess that the UK government have made over the course of the last year. He rejected the austerity that they're bringing in to try and sort that out. Instead, he says he's putting up tax rates. Now, mostly that is because he wants to increase spending on health, what he described as a penny for patient care, as our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports on what happened with the budget today.
Plummeting temperatures and rising energy bills are adding up to a double whammy for some households. For many, keeping homes heated and food on the table has become a daily struggle.
How are you finding things?
I'm finding it very difficult with my health and all that, because I'm having to run my gas up that much. I'm leaving myself skint, so I can't get enough food.
People are struggling, especially with this weather being so cold.
The gas is horrendous. If you put the heating on at all, they have a meter, and it's like the second hand on a clock.
Is a robust sewer tunnel?
Yes. A short distance away, the Deputy First Minister was being shown a scheme to cut energy bills. John Swinney was also planning measures to relieve pressure on the government's finances.
And I'm therefore suspending this meeting for 30 minutes.
However, his budget was delayed to allow an investigation after details were leaked. It made for an ill-tempered opening to his statement.
No individual was authorised on my behalf to disclose any information.
Members.
The Deputy First Minister confirmed those on the higher rate of income tax will pay 42 pence in the pound. The top rate will also increase by a penny to 47 pence. And the threshold for the top rate will be lowered from £150,000, in line with the rest of the UK.
We've taken the decision to enable us to exceed the health resource Barnett consequentials from the UK Government, with substantial additional investment in the National Health Service, an investment that will benefit us all. It is, in short, an extra penny to enable spending on patient care in our National Health Service.
Mr Swinney said spending on health and social care will increase by more than £1 billion in 1 year.
If you raise taxes, Mr Swinney, the public wants to know why they see only cuts and a deterioration in the delivery of public services. And if you widen the tax gap for middle and higher earners in Scotland in comparison with their UK counterparts, you risk undermining the potential for economic growth that this country so desperately needs.
Funding for an independence referendum next year has been reallocated to tackle fuel poverty. And there's an extra £550 million for local government.
People will not accept a rise in tax bills if all they see is further decline of their services after 15 years of the SNP's mismanagement of them.
An increase in interest rates is also likely to put more pressure on middle earners.
They tended to be just living on that knife edge anyway, but getting by. And now that the mortgage rates are going up, so they'll have higher mortgages than normally people would have in lower earners, and they will have access to more debt than people on lower incomes would have.
A budget for turbulent times, but unions are warning it does not go far enough. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
So, Colin, a big focus on tax.
Absolutely. The big story was that increase in the higher tax rate, 42p in every pound for those earning over 43,663. Now that's the really big one because it's 2p higher than the equivalent in England, and it kicks in at a lower threshold, almost £7,000 lower than in England, where the 40p rate kicks in on earnings above about £50,000. Now, the Scottish Government maintains that anyone earning less than about £27,000 in Scotland will pay less in tax than they will in the rest of the UK, and they say that that is the majority of taxpayers here. Now, as you would expect from what you heard in Ewan's report there, business groups are concerned about the tax increases, but the unions are happy that they've got some of what they were asking for.
We've seen some steps in the right direction. I wouldn't say that they're giant strides, which perhaps is what we would like to have seen given the current circumstances, but the focus on investment in public services is to be welcomed. The announcement about the peak rail fares being reduced is to be welcomed, and I think we've got a door open here now to have some more constructive dialogue around public sector pay.
One of our biggest asks is that we give small businesses breathing space, just a bit of room. With all of the pressures, all of the stresses, 90% of businesses in the last year have seen their overheads increase. So today's budget has hopefully will slow that down a little bit.
So, Colin, what else is in the budget?
Well, there's that £1 billion boost in spending for health and social care. Finance Secretary says that's a bigger uplift than the equivalent down south. Spending in social security will also go up by more than £1 billion. Spending on the Scottish Child Payment will more than double to £442 million next year. Local government had been demanding an extra £1 billion. They're barely getting half of what they asked for there. And the £20 million that had been put aside to fund an independence referendum next year, well, that cash will now go on a fuel insecurity fund. There's also going to be a 6-month pilot scrapping peak rail fares, and it's not often that I get the chance to give rail users any good news, but there you go, there's a first.
Colin, at the Scottish Parliament, thank you.